Hello, fellow psychology lovers. Thank you for tuning into the video. I'm Nick. Shout out to the subscribers of the channel. We really appreciate your support and your presence in this community that we're building. And if you're new to the channel, you should check out all the content we've been creating. I think it's really high quality. We're going to keep it coming. And so if you find it valuable and you want to support us, best way to do that is to subscribe and engage with the videos. I'm here introducing a conversation I had with a man named Roy Sims, who is one of the most inspiring people I know. Roy is a U.S. national champion in sumo wrestling. After a successful career playing college football, Roy started competing in MMA. Eventually, he found sumo wrestling, signed himself up for a tournament 1 month later, competed at that tournament, took third place, losing only to a world champion. Came back the next year and won the whole tournament, beating that world champion. Took the sumo world by storm. Everybody was shocked how this guy just came on the scene and dominated. I met Roy when we were both playing football for Gavilan Community College in Gilroy, California. I came in as a freshman, Roy was a sophomore, and I can say that I learned a lot about the game of football playing with Roy Sims. Roy was the best player on the field every game we played. He was extremely dominant. He played D-line, I was a linebacker, and what I learned about football is if you have a defensive lineman who can dominate and blow up the line of scrimmage the instant that the offense snaps the ball, you're going to be a really good team. And that's exactly what Roy was to our team. He dominated the centerpiece of every play. He would occupy 2, often 3 blockers at a time, which made it really easy for linebackers to flow through the gaps and make tackles. He was an inspiring leader on the team, and he was never cocky. I mean, he was, again, the best player on the field every game we played, but that never really got to his head. He remained humble. So he's just a really good person, and he's a deep thinker. And knowing this about him, I reached out to him and asked if he wanted to record a conversation to share with the world. And we talked for 4 hours. And so this is not a 4-hour long video. I'm just sharing a little bit of it. I asked him many questions, and 2 of the questions I asked are the ones that I've included here in this video. So enjoy the conversation, enjoy the peek into the mind of a supreme athlete. Thank you so much for joining me, Roy. So one of the questions I really want to ask you might be one that's a little bit difficult to answer for you because you're a very humble person, but it's a question that I think a lot of people would be curious to hear your response to. And the question is, what is it like to be so dominant as an athlete? In your experience playing football and in various martial arts and in traditional wrestling, you've undoubtedly been a dominant athlete. So what is that like?
Um, Most of the time it made me feel really great, but there were some times where it didn't. And I realized in MMA it didn't at one moment when I remember I had just beat a guy up, man. I just beat him up real bad. I don't think he hit me one time. And I took him to the ground, I was winning so well that I got to a point where I was ready to do ground and pound on top of him because I got him on down, and I thought I could just take my fist and hammer fist and break, just destroy this person. And I went for the submission.
Mm.
I realized that I didn't have that kill type mentality. That's not me, especially in that situation. It wasn't necessary. Um, had there been an elevated real situation, families on the line, life's on the line, I don't know. Probably I'm not one. My body would take over. You know, I think it would protect itself. Um, but in that case, I wasn't afraid. I was in control. I had full ability. This person could not compete compete with me. Got the submission, won the fight, standing there. They raised my hand up, and everybody's cheering. Everybody's excited. I didn't. I was upset. I'm thinking, how dare you guys? Like the way they were just. I don't know. I felt like they were taunting him to some degree, and I felt like any one of you guys in the crowd jump into this thing with this guy. He's one of the toughest people you would ever probably meet. Like this guy is a warrior. Just because just because I beat him doesn't make this guy any not tougher.
Mhm.
And it was my day today. You know, I was the dominant one. I know down the road one day I'm gonna meet a kid that just kicks my ass. And I'm gonna smile. I'm gonna be excited about it. You know, I'll probably be coaching him. You know, at that
Mhm.
point. But I guess the feeling, you know, the feeling of dominating in sports has two things. One, oftentimes it makes you go, okay, my training's going well. I've been training well. The things I've been doing are going well. The stuff that I've been doing is helping. Um, but it can also kind of be that thing that makes you kind of overconfident in yourself, or it makes you not train as hard and just kind of rest on your laurels if you're dominating a lot.
Right.
Um, I think I think for me, having been a really big kid, I was always going against older kids. I
Mm.
was always going against multiple people. I was always double team, triple team, jumped. You know, it was just kind of the style of life that I had. And I think as a kid, sometimes you have those kids that are really successful when they're in the youth sports and things like that. And so they don't maybe continue to push themselves. I don't know if that played into my reasoning for really like going that next level when I got older, was knowing that, hey, I wanted to be the dominant one. I didn't want to be you know, the one being dominated. And so I think I training was always big. But I mean, let's face it, at the end of the day, I was also given a very positive genetic makeup.
Mhm.
Like God gave that to me. And I always saw there was a lot of guys on my teams and a lot of people that have been around me and supported me or came up to me that maybe were in a wheelchair or were that guy on the team that just always worked hard but never could get over that whatever he had,
Mhm.
but worked his ass off. And so I think for me, I always felt like it was my responsibility to continue in sport. Like me being dominating was me saying, I accept the responsibility. Thank you, God, for putting me in this position. There's a lot of people that would like to be in this position, and I honor that, uh, by working hard and trying to continue that. Um, and I hope that I'm doing. I hope that the gifts that you're giving me, I'm using to better people and create inspiration, and and the other thing I think that always made me want to be the one that won was, I hate to see people win and be jerks. I
Mhm.
I hate that. I hate showboat. And I don't mean the showboating where you're having fun and you're laughing and you're having a good time. Like that's fine. You want to dance, you want to have a good time, that's great. You want to put your hands and fists in there, like, yes, I won. I love that. Fine. But the ones that down talk to the other opponent, or you see it in UFC a lot now, where they talk about people's heritage, or they talk about like that to me is like, what has happened to sports? For me, the greatest athletes were always the ones that were the humble athletes, that the champion athletes, where yeah, they were good, and off the field they said things that inspired people, made them great. I didn't feel like God gives you these that platform to then be like, oh, look at how great I've been. It's like, no, come on, let's be honest. Let's
Yeah.
be honest. Nobody, I don't care who you are, nobody made it to where they are by themselves.
Mm.
You might have had some rough times. I'm not negating the fact that there are people out there that come from just such rough instances, but there were people there. There was somebody. There were moments. Somebody helped that person get to that next level. So that the whole thought that this is on our own, that just never resonated with me either. So it's like all these people that are behind me, my community. When it comes to sumo, I it wasn't a national thing. It was my community. It was the people around me. It's the people I see at the grocery stores. That to me was the reason why I wanted to win.
Mhm.
I win for my tribe. You know what I mean? The people that I love, everybody that is behind me. That's why I try to win. Or I want to win. It's not about me. Like, it's almost embarrassing when I win. I do get a little like at that point where you're up on the stage, and there's a moment of a pride, but there's still this kind of like, I don't know. It just is kind of awkward. People will surprise you. Humans, we're not just a body, and that's why when I train people, I don't want them to see themselves as just training their body. I'm not. If you want me to train your body, go find somebody else. There's so many great people that can train your body, and they'll just focus on your body, and maybe you'll even have a better looking body, because I do function. I don't necessarily do pretty. I've gone against a lot of people that train that way to look great, and I'm getting a little older, so I'm starting to get a little more into that. But that's when it comes to sport, I've always trained function,
Mm.
and function is important. And functional spiritualism in sport, that backing is so huge, man.
Mhm.
Your functional mental capacity in sport, and being able to stop for a moment and go, where am I? Oh yeah, I'm in a match. Let me sink my hips, get underneath.
Yeah.
Like, that takes a mental capacity, and a moment, like you are in a fight, man.
Mm.
Like your body is being attacked.
Yeah.
That bear is right in front of you, and you now have the ability to think. Like,
Yes.
if you can think and be in the moment and feel yourself and feel your emotions and feel your everything that you feel, man, you're so powerful.
Man, that's such a good point because I can honestly relate. I can relate to that, having that clarity and like being lucid in the midst of a fight or a game like that. But I can also relate to the feeling of like not being able to do that, as though I just have many memories of, especially like, for example, my first year at Gavilan, where I hadn't adjusted to the speed of the game yet. And I'd be in a game, the ball would be snapped, and then it's just like a flurry. It was just everything happened so fast, and then the play was over, and I had this feeling of like, I don't even really know what just happened. I was just going on instinct. But
Yeah.
to have things slow down for you enough to really have that clarity and be able to think through what's happening, that's another level.
I remember the first time I ever had that happen. I was waiting for a bus, and there was this older kid, and he was picking on me, or I was bugging him, or something happened. I don't know what was going on. I'm sure it was a little bit of both. I was probably somehow we find ourselves in a fight. We're squared off, and there's a punch coming at my face, and I'll never forget seeing that punch coming at me and how slow it was moving.
Mm.
I never understood that. The rest of the world was always fast and going and moving, but in this moment, this person is moving slow. I remember ducking and being able to hit that person in the stomach and a couple times throughout on their body, multiple times. I was like 7 years old, man. I didn't know. This was something that just came from somewhere. I didn't. It was like wow, like I had no, it was my body reacting, but it was like going so slow that my mind had the ability to think about it.
Mm.
And I too have had experiences where that flurry happens, but when I was, the times that I'm able to be lucid and know where I'm at, time totally slows down. My abilities increase. When we can be in a calm state and still moving our body and not in that fight or flight fully, then we're lucid, and we have that ability to kind of tap into some other parts of our being. That was the thing that I really loved about sumo and football, is that there is this silence right before the snap or right before you go, right? And some people really get themselves elevated. They're like, they're getting all pumped. They're talking their trash. They're doing all their stuff. And I was never that guy. Before games, I listened to classical music. And honestly, it wasn't, Nick, it wasn't because I was tapping into that. It was because before games in high school and before stuff, I would get so excited and so revved up that I would throw up. I would throw up almost before so I had to figure out a way to get myself to calm down. And the more I could calm myself down, the more I realized, wow, this is super functional. This is not just for my own personal feelings. This has an aspect of like making me better in sport as well.
Right.
And so in sumo, there's a moment where you look across the way and you look at the guy and you take this moment. It's called sankyo. And when you get in there and you look at the guy across the way, a lot of guys use that moment to kind of like intimidate, or they'll kind of like look at the other person. I always look directly at their heart, right at their heart, and I look right at their soul, and I calm myself down, and I don't look at their face. I don't try to get any more energy. I just calm all the way down, so that when I am ready to explode, I explode from nothing. So that my explosion is just pure, just expression, not a reaction. Not a reaction. I don't want to react to the world. I want to express from my own true nothingness, right? And that's kind of ultimately kind of what we would want for ourselves, right? I mean, we want to have our own true expression, not necessarily reacting to the world and our surroundings, but creating our own true vibration, right? And so I always love that moment in sport, like even in football, right before that snap, where everything's silent. It's like it's silent, man. I love that moment. That's my favorite moment. It's right before that explosion, and then boom, it's like, whoa, what just happened,
Mm.
and I think that when we train that way, when we train to decrease the amount of excitement in that moment, we really put ourselves in that parasympathetic mode, and that is just so much more that you can do from that moment, I think.
Great point. And you know what's interesting is I think that even people who aren't playing a sport or who aren't, sumo wrestling, they can take this wisdom and apply it even to their own life, whether it's, dealing with their kids' needs or going to work or exercising, or it really applies, I think, to many things we do in life to stay anchored in a calm state, which you
Yes.
put the biological terms on it, that parasympathetic state. It is a place of clarity. One thing I want to ask you is, so I'll give you some of my thoughts leading into the questions. So I've always noticed about you, and talking to you just makes me understand this more fully. You are the epitome of a peaceful warrior. That archetype of the warrior who is truly extremely dominant and yet peaceful and not boastful, not overly prideful, not mean, but peaceful. You are that, like, shining. And so, one of the questions I would love to hear you to speak to is related to violence in the world. And I think about the evolution of war. And if you dial back the clock far enough, people were fighting with their fists, and it was just tribes fighting with their bare hands. And then we picked up tools, and then, we started fighting with sticks, and then we started fighting with swords, and then of course came guns, and or perhaps bow and arrow before that, and then there were guns, and then there were bombs. And with each step in that process, things became at the same time more violent and destructive, and yet you were farther removed from the person with whom you were battling. And now we're literally just sending drones from different countries from across the ocean. So we're like so far removed from being able to do what you described so beautifully, of actually like recognizing the soul within this person. I know I heard you say before that you're a pacifist and that you stand for nonviolence, and your type of combat is honorable combat. And so what are your feelings around war, the war mentality of so many cultures in the world, and the degree of violence we see in the world now?
When I was 18 at Fresno State, I went into ROTC, did a year of military training, military classes, loved it. I always was fascinated by the training. I always loved training. Always loved knowing how to read a map and a compass and knowing how to clear a room and knowing how to just all the different types of trainings that you would get in basic military type training. And so I always liked it. And I wanted to be a helicopter pilot. I wanted to be a helicopter pilot more than anything. Went through the year. At the very end of the year, they said, well, it's time to give you the scholarship, and you can tack this onto your scholarship, your football scholarship. You're gonna be with us for 4 years. When you get out, you'll be an officer, and then you'll have a certain amount of time in the military. I was good with that. I thought, okay, I can do some good here, right? Then they they said, well, what job do you want? And I said, oh yeah, I want to be a helicopter pilot. And they said, well, your scores are fine, but you're not going to fit in the cockpit. You're just too big. Your legs are too long. You're too wide. You can't fly a helicopter, man.
Hmm.
And I said, well, let me give me some time then. I don't even know. That was the only thing I even wanted. I could pretty much do any other job outside of here, and I really wanted to fly an Apache helicopter. I'm an Apache native, I wanted to fly an Apache helicopter or a Black Hawk. Those things look like they just move in a way that is so brilliantly amazing. I didn't end up going into the military then, and years over, I tried to get into the Marines and I tried to get into the Army. I tried to get into the Navy. For whatever reason, something pulled me out, kept pulling me out, kept pulling me out. And I remember later on, I read something that a lot of people that go into the military commit suicide, right? And a lot of them um, are a huge amount are drone operators and helicopter pilots. And I thought, how is that? And then I realized what you just talked about. When I have a weapon so strong and so much better than you, and I'm fighting you, I'm exterminating you like with a can of Raid. I'm not fighting. This isn't an honorable war.
Mm.
And I imagine that starts to eat at people, because it started to eat at me thinking about how I would have felt. It's not necessarily that you are the greatest swordsman of all time. You just had a sword that
Mm.
was greater than anybody else had on the other side.
Right.
And so a little bit of the honorability of the warrior, I think, changes in that type of war, because it's life or death now. You know what I mean? And it's always been life or death, but it was different. We had similar weapons, and I think that kind of frames my mentality in that regard. But I think I'm not a soldier. I wasn't a soldier. I'm a warrior.
Mm.
I'm a different type of warrior. Um, and that's why my life is the way it is. Now, growing up in America, I am highly privileged to be a pacifist. I've had protection my entire life. A child or a person that grew up in another country may have a very different perspective than I have. Um, what they grew up with and what's gone around them, and it might now. Do I think the way I think is superior? To some degree, yeah. But if war were to hit my front steps tomorrow, Nick, and I had to protect my family, I don't know that I would be a pacifist anymore.
Mm. That's very
It's a
honest.
luxury, it's a luxury that I get.
Mm.
Um, it's the life that God has given me. But I also have to know that that my perceptions are shaped by my reality that I've been afforded, and some of that reality could shape my thinking. And if my reality were to change dramatically, it could change my thinking again. I am not impervious to violence. I choose not to be violent in every moment that I can. I I choose to let up when I can hurt somebody. I choose to stop fighting when I don't need to. And violence at the war level, Nick, I don't even know if I know what that is. I have an uncle that picked up dead bodies in Vietnam, explosions. That was his job. He picked up scattered bodies. I have another uncle that was like an assassin. in Vietnam, and would go in by himself and assassinate somebody and bring back a body part to show what has happened, and prove that person's dead. I don't want to pass judgment on the soldier
Right.
and say it's wrong for what you're doing, when at the same time I live in I live in a paradise because of of our soldier society that we created.
Right.
It's so I I'm not I'm not naive to think that given a different situation, that I may not be the perfect pacifist. But I also think that that type of mentality of being a pacifist is a different type of mentality of the kill anybody that needs to be, that's on the other side.
Mm. That's such an honest response. And yeah, I mean, what you're saying is has really affected me here. And even just two of the things you said, which were I let up when I could hurt somebody, and I choose to stop fighting when I don't need to. Those two principles right there could really go a long way if we were to kind of scale them up to the massive level, to where, like, if we were to apply those principles to war, to where in the same exact way that you described the way that you could have really hurt that guy badly in the ring with your hammer fists, but you went for the submission. It's like if we were to use that as kind of an analogy of the way that we fight war, if we were indeed at war with an army that we would just could completely dominate, and we were able to basically submit them and beat them clearly and show them that we are way more dominant than them, yet choose not to hurt them or injure them, that I think could be a very morally sound approach to war. And also that point about choosing to stop fighting when you don't need to really have like discernment around whether we need to be fighting is so important, I think. And then to really choose not to fight when it's not necessary. And I also agree with you that sometimes it's necessary. And so, but to really to be able to discern when it is and when it isn't necessary is just something I would really hope that our leaders have.
I do think that there's, to have a balanced society or have a balanced person, you really need that. Like, for example, all of my kids are in martial arts. They're required to be in martial arts. They can try any other sport they want, and if they don't like it, they can try it. They can jump out. But martial arts, either martial arts or swimming or something very, very shaping of who they are,
Mhm.
they have to be in it.
Mhm.
Because to me, I feel it's important that I shape them in a way that's beautiful and positive, and they know that everything is about love, and everything that they do is about helping people and humanity, and feeling good about themselves. But I never in a million years want them to ever be vulnerable in a situation where they can't defend themselves
Mm.
and can't take control of the situation.
I am feeling super grateful that you've now, spent almost 4 hours total with me. Everything we've talked about has been really meaningful. And I just want to thank you for not just your time with me, but just who you are, man, and your approach to life and your approach to people. Yeah, I just think a lot of people can learn a lot from you. So thank you.
I I appreciate you reaching out, man. It was such a blessing for you to do that for me, because I'm. It's nice to reconnect with you, feel your spirit, be with you again. It. Uh, the people that I've done sports with, uh, they're just. It's you go through things that you pushed yourself through, that it's that you end up having this brothership. It's so amazing in the sense that we have this connection, that when we get back, it's like we already have this rapport,
Yeah.
and because we went through something together, and
Mm.
you know honestly, man, when you connect back and you want to talk about this kind of stuff, and you'd say I touched you in a way, or you remembered me in a certain way like this, it it it, it fills me, because sometimes we feel alone,
Mm.
and we feel like nobody's recognizing, nobody's watching, nobody's seeing anymore. And sometimes you just keep going, and you feel alone, man.
Mm.
Like, we're separate from the world. So sometimes we feel that way.
Yeah.
And when somebody calls you and says, "Hey, I just want to connect with you, man. I want to talk to you
Mhm.
again." It's a beautiful thing. And when you want to understand somebody's mentality and film it and do something cool like that, I think that's really awesome, man. And so I appreciate you. I appreciate your intentions, and I more than a video or whatever you're trying to make, I appreciated just being able to hang out with you and talk to you, man.
Mm. I feel you. I feel that. Beautiful. All right, man. Well, let's stay connected. Who knows when we'll talk or see each other again, but I'm sure it'll be in due time.
Sounds good, brother.
All right.
All right. Namaste.
Namaste.
If you like this video and you want to see more, please subscribe.